The following program presents principles designed to promote good health and is not intended to take the place of personalized professional care. The opinions and ideas expressed are those of the speaker. Viewers are encouraged to draw their own conclusions about the information presented.
Hello and welcome to Health for a Lifetime. I'm your host, Don McIntosh. We're glad you're with us today. Today we're going to be talking about stress. It's something that affects most of us, either in a positive way or a negative way. And talking with us today, we have Dr. Skip McCarty. And you've been doing a lot of research on stress. You are one of the members of the American College, I guess a fellow of the American Institute of Stress. You've given major presentations for that organization, and your Stress Beyond Coping seminar is now, it's being used in many communities and is endorsed by the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. We're going to be covering part of that seminar. I've been impressed with it. We won't be able to cover everything in the seminar. I know that people can get in touch with that material by either calling the General Conference or here at 3ABN. But today we're going to be focusing on what you call in your seminar life management and how it relates to stress management. So that's a big thing. I don't know, we can't cover everyone's whole life here today, but give us an overview of stress as you see it. You have that organizational paradigm, the stress tank, and some keys that you have discovered. And then let's talk about this life management.
Okay. Don, the stress tank is simply an invitation to view your life as a tank, and you have stresses being
poured in all day,
poured into your life throughout the day. And if you get too much, and it reaches the overflow point, the point of overload, then various kinds of harm. You're harder to get along with.
Irritable.
It's put strain in relationships. It can cause illness, disease. 60 to 90% of people who would go to a physician for some kind of health problem, it's estimated now are stress-related problems, illnesses, and accident proneness. Person's more prone to be in an accident if they're under a lot of stress. Fortunately, there's a pressure relief valve on the tank that can drain stress to safe levels and prevent the buildup to the harmful point. There's ways we can close the pressure relief valve, thinking we're helping ourselves. People who six out of the 10 reasons why people who continue to smoke are stress-related reasons. And number one reason is to help them handle stress. And yet it boomerangs. It actually creates more stress, social stress, physical stress, etc. And there's 7 keys that open the pressure relief valve.
Okay.
These are the keys to managing stress.
Prayer, relaxation, exercise, your viewpoint, eating healthy, neighborly love, and then this last one here in this acronym at least, time management and organization. I assume that's where life management comes in.
That's where it fits in the organizational element. We've already talked about time management. We had a program on time management. Now we're talking about organization. It's life management really is what it is.
Okay, so, and then in the overall scheme of stress management, where would this fall?
Okay, in the stress pyramid that I've developed, it's one of the 4 foundational elements. You can see we put it quite high in the 4 foundational elements there at the bottom. And the real power elements of stress management are at the top 3, but this is still very important. Time management, organization, life management. And life management is in some ways, it's kind of a catch-all of a lot of different things going on in our lives. It's not as specifically focused as just time management or just exercise, but it involves a lot of different elements.
So then how does life management, relate to stress management?
Well, good organization and life management, Don, number one, it helps put us more in control of our situation. And the control is such an important concept in stress management. When people lose control, they're under stress. When they feel like they've lost control of their lives, they're under stress. When you take someone who's been independent and you put them in a nursing home,
Ooh, that's big.
it's very big. They lose control of every element of their life. They don't even choose, in many cases, what they wear. It's chosen for them.
What
and
they
so
eat, when they
anything
get
you
up,
can do
all
to
that.
give them control. Well, life management is just, I mean, it's not, that's kind of taking to an extreme. But life management is just trying to get control over the various elements of our life and be more in control of our lives in that respect.
Okay, so anything else besides control? I mean, taking away control that you've once had, but what else does life management do?
Well, it can help prevent, the second point is it can help prevent distress from just by controlling some of the environment around us.
That guy does look a little overloaded.
Part of our
there in the
environment
graphic.
that we do have some control over. Yes, he looks a bit out of control there, but
Yes, he does.
we're trying to
So,
help him get in more control.
Give you more control and help you not look like that guy. Help
Yeah,
prevent distress.
and just
Okay.
to control some of the elements of the environment around you.
All right, so lack of control, in other words, out of control or losing control. What else is involved in life management? What's really ultimately involved in? What's the bottom line?
Well, basically, it's getting control of your life and trying to arrange things in your environment so that you're not, is to keep you from reaching the overload. There's certain things we can do, decisions we can make to keep our stress tank from filling to the overload point. We don't have control over a lot of things that go on in our lives, but there's plenty that we do have control over, and it's managing to focus on the elements we do have control over, like the Serenity Prayer suggested. Grant me the serenity, Lord, to accept the things I cannot change and be at peace about them, and then to change the things that I can. It's those things that we do have control over. It's really focusing on those things and gaining control and trying to line them up so they're not stress producing in our lives as much as possible.
What about this, we have a problem with information overload. Many times you just get so much stuff coming in. What do? What does life management teach us about that?
Well, first of all, I'd like to back up just a little bit from that and say that the first point I recommend in this life management area is that we start our days slower and earlier, because we lose many people. If you get up in the day, if it takes you 45 minutes to get ready, get up and quickly get ready for work and get out the door, we recommend you try to back that up in a half an hour and give yourself an hour and a half. Give yourself a little bit of leeway in there, so you're not so hurried, you're not so rushed. That sets a different tone for the day. Now, you can't do it simply by setting your alarm clock half an hour earlier. That doesn't work, because then you're irritable, you haven't got enough sleep as it is, and this is even worse. It means managing the night before. Trying to get to bed a little bit earlier the night before. You can't do it in a big, like move it an hour or two earlier. That doesn't work either. But just moving it little by little increments until you give yourself extra time in the morning. You wake up with an alarm clock. That's what we recommend. Set your alarm as a fail-safe, but wake up without an alarm clock. But just wake up earlier than you ordinarily do, so you give yourself plenty of time. Any little emergency come up, it's okay. You give yourself some leeway. And it sets a different tone for the day. That's
So
the way
no
we
alarm
start.
clock, if you can help it.
Yes, that's one of the other principles of the rest and relaxation for stress, is try to get enough sleep at night so you don't have to have that alarm clock to wake you up. You can still set the alarm clock as a fail-safe, but you want to wake up before the alarm goes off.
Okay. We're going to come to this information overload thing, and I hope you help me with that.
Yes, that's very important.
Okay, what about
information overload? Information overload leads to, it's requiring us to make decisions. Junk mail, the amount of junk mail we get these days, and if a person opens all the mail that they get, those advertisers, the marketers, design those products and design those ad pieces so that you have to make some kind of decision. So we're just adding to all the decisions we already have to make in a day. You take television advertisements. That's an amazing amount of stuff that we have as well. So
you're saying here, don't even open the junk mail?
Don't even open. A lot of it, you don't even have to open the junk mail.
Turn the radio off.
Turn the radio off one way, at least one way. On the way to work or getting home from work, turn the radio off, because again, that's information It's just, it can be information overload. But let me tell you what's happening when the radio's on all the time, is we learn to tune out the human voice. You've got the radio on, it's just noise, and you listen to it for a while. Then after a while, you're off thinking something else. But the music is, I mean, the talk guys keep talking, and you're not listening anymore. So what happens is somebody close to you. You go home, your wife talks to you, and you're not even listening. You're training yourself on the way home to tune out the human voice. Maybe you listen for just a little bit, and then bang, your mind's off, just like with the radio. We recommend turning it off. If you're not listening to something, turn it off. And TV commercials, if you're watching TV and it has commercials, mute the commercials. Not on 3ABN, because that's valuable information. But
well, that's very politically correct to say that. But so what do you do with your junk mail? I'll tell you, see if I'm doing the right thing. I have this big box where I put all this mail in that I don't want to open till later. And I put it all in there, and then I open it when I'm on something else. I don't have anything else to do.
That's fine. You might even eventually decide, is some of that not even worth that kind of time? Because maybe there's something else, a book you'd rather read, or something else that would be even more valuable.
Well, if I know
but it's up to you.
Questionable junk mail, I put in this box. Yeah. The other junk mail, I put it right in the fireplace.
Yes.
I hate to say that. I mean,
yeah.
No junk mail.
But that's not a bad place for it. Or recycle. I have a recycle bin, and I recycle that stuff.
Okay, so after we get a handle on it through getting rid of the junk mail, not listening to the radio both ways, and these other things you've talked about, what's the next step? I mean, there seems to be so many things that are required of us today to do. I mean, just basically life seems to be more complicated, or am I missing something? What should we do?
I think we're all feeling the same crunch on that, Don. And the next thing on my list that I recommend is that we regulate the amount and the intensity of activities that we're involved in. I like the statement that was made by Dr. Meyer Friedman. He was one of the researchers that discovered the type A, type B personality and wrote that and put that before us. And he said, when a commitment looms, I ask myself, will I care about this 5 years from now? If so, I accept. If not, I decline. The 5-year test puts things into perspective. Once I started refusing invitations, I had more time for the things I considered really important, my family, my friends, and my work. And what got him to that point of doing that, Don, was that when he was 40 years old, he had his first heart attack. Cardiologist, very successful cardiologist in San Francisco, had his first heart attack at age 40. He began to rethink his life and reevaluate his life. And then he came up with his 5-year test. And he says, you put things in perspective when you do that. Is it really going to matter? And so what he did, he just slowed down the amount of things happening in his life, and began to regulate his life and his schedule.
So the question then practically again is to say, hey, look, whatever is being asked of me to do, is it going to really matter in 5 years? Well, again, I think the other thing you talked about in one of your other keys was this time management principle, where you were looking at things and prioritizing what you wanted to do today and in 5 years and in this and that. Maybe you're going to cover a little bit of that today. But
focus on the things that are the most important. That's correct.
Okay, so once you've done that, I'm sure there's other steps and things that you will cover. And I'm starting to get an idea of what this means. It's a pretty broad topic, life management, but these are very practical things. We've been talking with Dr. Skip McCarty. We've been talking about time management and actually life management as it relates to stress, how you can reduce your stress if you get a handle on this. Join us when we come back. We'll talk more about it.
Have you found yourself wishing that you could shed a few pounds? Have you been on a diet for most of your life, but not found anything that will really keep the weight off? If you've answered yes to any of these questions, then we have a solution for you that works. Dr. Hans Diehl and Dr. Eileen Ludington have written a marvelous booklet called Reversing Obesity Naturally, and we'd like to send it to you free of charge. Here's a medically sound approach successfully used by thousands who were able to eat more and lose weight permanently without feeling guilty or hungry through lifestyle medicine. Dr. Diehl and Dr. Ludington have been featured on 3ABN, and in this booklet, they present a sensible approach to eating, nutrition, and lifestyle changes that can help you prevent heart disease, diabetes, and even cancer. Call or write today for your free copy of Reversing Obesity Naturally, and you could be on your way to a healthier, happier you. It's absolutely free of charge, so call or write today.
Welcome back. We've been talking about stress and stress management, what you can do to alleviate stress in your life. The thing we've been talking about today with Dr. McCarty is life management. And what we've talked about is that if we just take an overall look at our life and we get started early in the morning, we slow things down and we really take a steady look at things, we really can have a more positive outlook and we can have less stress, at least some stress is good, but unhealthy stress. Is there anything else that's involved? Anything else you'd like to add to that?
Well, another thing that we don't often think of specifically as a major stressor of life, and it may not be, but it's another point, and that is avoiding clutter.
Avoiding clutter.
Avoiding clutter. When you get in a car every day that's just cluttered with stuff, go home every day and the main rooms you live in are cluttered with stuff. Just avoiding clutter is very important.
So start your day slower, limit the number of decisions required through getting rid of the junk mail and telemarketers and whatnot, and regulate the amount and intensity of activities as well as avoiding clutter.
Yeah, avoiding clutter. My wife and I, since she's a professional too and she works full-time, we kind of share the housework. And we even have to, at times, have had somebody come in and help us with that because we just get so busy with our work. But we went together to a kind of a housework seminar one time by a professional, and this person was a real professional. It was fun to watch.
Sounds like a very exciting seminar, a housework
it was
seminar.
Like half a day. And it was like
great.
I mean, she was great. It was a passion for her doing housework, and so she had all these different tips. But one of the things she said that stuck with me, has influenced me from that point on. Every room in our house, our car, cluttered places, or most of them, are 5 minutes from being clutter-free.
5 minutes from clutter.
Now, not 5 minutes from being clean, like my wife considers cleanliness. Maybe clean like I might accept it. But
5 minutes from your cleanliness
standards. From being clutter-free.
Okay,
from stuff just laying all around. You can go through quite quickly in a room that's really cluttered, and it is stressful for most people to be in cluttered areas all the time.
Especially at night when you trip over that stuff.
You know, the average executive's desk has 36 hours of work sitting on the desk. At times mine's been known to have more than that. But the best management experts, time management experts, say it's best to have a clutter-free desk. To take that stuff and put it in another drawer, and it kind of sets out of sight, and then then prioritize it if you can, so that you can start working off the top of it, but only have the thing on your desk that you're working on, one thing at a time on your desk. Now, you know, I try to do that. Most of the time I'm not there, but I know the goal, and you know what? I work better. I work faster. It's a better feeling. All the way around, it's less stressful. Less stressful to be in a clutter-free environment. And clutter-free is not clean, but it's much less stressful.
I must confess to you, I think my office is about 7 minutes away from being clutter-free, but I like the point, and I'm sure my wife will like the point too as she hears this. Well, moving from the clutter-free environment, which is of course good, and it's a great thing, and I do feel better too when my desk is clutter-free. What about so many global things that are happening? You know, so many things seem to be bombarding the individual, at least in the affluent society of America. What can we do to get a handle on that? Is there any way we can manage that?
We live in a world in which living is change. Life is change today. So many changes taking place so fast in our lives. And the experts, again, suggest that there's only a certain amount of change that we can handle at any one time. And then we actually, just in the change perspective alone, it's a whole change theory of stress, saying that stress is primarily change. And you get too much of it, and you're overloaded. And you can literally started to have health breakdowns and adversely affect your immune system. There's been a scale that is probably the most scientific instrument that I know available for a scientifically validated instrument for measuring the amount of stress that we're under, and it's what is called the change scale, developed by Dr. Thomas Holmes and Richard Ray at the University of Washington.
Okay.
Thomas Holmes, I believe, is deceased now, and Richard Ray is at the University of Nevada at Reno at the present time. But this is a scale. It took the death of a spouse at 100 points and has 43 items on it, and all the way down to Christmas being 12 points, and
so even things that we
getting
think
a
are good are
traffic
actually
ticket being
stressful.
11. That's one of the things we learned from that scale. You can have up to like 300 points and not be high stress, but you get over 300 points, and your chances of a major illness or accident in the next 12 months are like 80%. And I've had people in my seminars that have scored 500-600 points on those tests, and they're really in a danger zone. Now, it doesn't mean that they're automatic. That means definitely they're going to get ill, a serious illness, or be in an accident. But it means they need to be much more alert, and they need to be working on some things in their lives. And one of the things, some other stress principles, one of the things it's highly recommended, Don, is that if you're in a change time of life, slow down the number of changes in your life as much as you're able to do.
So in other words, when you have all the stress going on, it's not a good time to get a new house and move across town if you have a whole bunch of other things happening.
Exactly right. And if you go, for instance, if someone's going through a divorce, oftentimes they'll even leave a community.
Not a good thing to do.
Not a good thing to do, because they're upsetting their social support system. They've got to reestablish themselves somewhere. That means new shopping areas. It means new physicians. It means so many changes taking place in their lives. And major things that they can easily spike over 300 points precipitated by that one change, and then they chose to make other major changes without thinking about the consequences of that. We suggest people slow down. The death of a spouse. Sometimes the surviving spouse will move quite quickly. We suggest slow that down. Spend some time, get readjusted before you make any other major moves during that time.
Well, what about our schedules? Many times they seem so packed with different things. What can we do about that?
Well, as hard as it seems, our recommendation is to monitor their schedule and adjust it so that it's not, regulate it so that it doesn't get out of control. And when it does, we just put the most important things at the top and do the best we can at them. And when you go to bed, you got to go to bed with peace in your heart, knowing you did the best you could for the day, and forget the rest of it and just go to bed with peace.
Finances?
Finances, a major one today. And I can tell you that one of the greatest stressors, my wife can tell you, is if I even think I'm getting close to being in debt.
Yeah, that stresses you out.
It overwhelms me. It overwhelms me, yeah. It does. And even though I teach all this stuff, I just want to stay as far away from the debt ditch
Avoid
as I
it like the
possibly
plague.
can. Now, the interesting thing is I've got in front of me right now the August 27, 2001 issue of Newsweek.
Okay.
And the cover article is maxed out. And it's talking about, it says, American consumers are drowning in debt. How to swim to financial security. Do you know that the American public today is $7.2 trillion in debt? 5 trillion of that, in fact, it's 7.3 trillion. 5 trillion of that is mortgage debt. But can you imagine that half of the mortgage debt is in credit card debt? What I mean is, by the half again more.
You see,
half of the amount of mortgage debt
is
in
credit card debt.
It's almost all credit card debt.
Which is a huge interest
card
rate.
debt, larger interest rates. So many people, they're having record bankruptcies, and so many people are just drowning in debt. And that is a great stressor.
So what do we do
great
about
stressor. It? Well, there are some things that can be done. The Bible says in Proverbs that the borrower is a slave to the lender.
That's the truth.
So we know that the goal is not to be
enslaved
in slavery to a lender if possible. Now, the rules of thumb for indebtedness is, number one, don't charge an item that goes down in value. Now, that's not like a home. A home is not a depreciating item. A home is an appreciating item. But
hopefully.
Cars
most of the time. Right.
and a lot of things that are purchased by credit cards are, most things that are purchased by credit cards are depreciate in value. And 60% of the people that use credit cards do not pay them off at the end of the month. 60%.
60%.
60%. And secondly, don't borrow to invest in speculative ventures. I know it should go without saying. And, and the recommendations by the finance experts is don't borrow money to pay another debt.
Right.
Even though you're borrowing with less interest, even though you're consolidating because what happens is generally people, like, they'll refinance their home at a lower interest rate in order to pay off debt. But when they do that, their credit cards, they start putting up their credit cards again, charging on their credit cards, so then they get right back into debt again. Now, here's the 3 suggestions for getting out of debt. Number 1, incur no new debt. If you just make that commitment, I will incur no new debt, eventually you'll get out of debt. If you can make your payments, even their minimum payments, eventually you get out of debt.
So just make that decision. We're not going to buy anything new. We're not going to start out on anything new.
Number 1, yep. Number 2, when you pay off your smallest debt, add that amount toward the retirement of your next smallest debt. Now, even though it may not be as much interest as another one, what you want to do is get a sense of momentum. So you have one credit card with $87 on it, another one with $214, another one with $2,000 on it. You pay off your smallest one first, get it paid off as fast as you can. Then attribute that, take that payment and turn it right over and add that to the payment you're making on your $200 and some odd one. When you get done with that, add the payment, those 2 payments additional to that larger one, and just keep doing that until you're out of debt. It may take several years, but it's worth it to do it. And continue following those 2 steps until you're out of debt.
What if you're really deep in debt?
There's no other way than to follow the same process. But you may need to, if you're so deep that you're facing bankruptcy, you may need to go to a counselor and consult a counselor. Financial counselor.
So these are very practical things, from clutter to what you do with your cash when it talks about life management. What one thing would you like to leave with people as they're looking over this whole idea of life management?
Well, Don, as redundant as this may seem, as often as I refer to this, it's because it's so important. And that would be the Serenity Prayer. Every day, and so my wife can tell you how many situations I say, how does the Serenity Prayer apply to this situation? And then we have to we think it through. What are the things that we can do nothing about? If we can identify those things, then release them to God. He can do something about them. We can't, so don't spend any energy on them, and then focus on the things you can do something about. It may be very small, but focus on those things and work on those things. Do the best you can on those things, and go to bed every night with peace in your heart.
We've been talking with Dr. Skip McCarty. We've been talking about stress, how we can get a handle on it. We can have not negative stress, but positive stress as we look at life management. You can find out more information about Dr. McCarty's seminar by contacting us here at 3ABN. Thanks for watching us today.